Hello and welcome, everybody. Friday, 29th of September. This is episode 98. 98, almost 100. There will be a surprise coming in episode 100 for all of you. And today's episode is going to be relatively quick. I have one quick announcement and then we talk about some updates. Some have mentioned the video quality on YouTube. It looks like a foggy bolts. How do you call these windows? Whatever, foggy window on a ship. Yes, that's true. That's because I record all this stuff with Zoom, and Zoom is not recording in the best quality. So it's a very, very low resolution quality from the video, at least. I think the audio is fine, but the video is not that fine. So sorry for all of you who watch me on YouTube. So I might think about a better solution soon, but we'll talk about that next week, I'll guess. Right, quick updates, and then I'll send you into the Friday because not that much happened yesterday. There was a new Amazon Ads API release on sponsored displays. When you go into a sponsored display campaign and you create this campaign, some settings do show you the potential reach and the potential impressions. And Amazon has now updated their forecasting API, that's how they call it, for giving you a better sense of potential impressions. So Sponsored Display has added forecast status to the API to better understand how targeting can affect delivery and scale. So basically, this is giving you via the API, hey, with this settings, this is my potential reach, my potential impressions. And there's two, let's say, forecast status. One is called impression targeting too narrow and impression targeting too broad, meaning lower bound and upper bound of impressions. And with that, you can kind of judge yourself and your campaigns and eventually experiment with targetings, bits, and other optimizations to see where you can place yourself in between these too narrow and too broad statuses, meaning like max and min reach. All right, that's released in all the regions. Basically, personally, my opinion here is I don't need something like that. The next update, and this is maybe a bit more interesting, but this is not specifically Amazon update. This is an AI update. AI, everybody is an AI. I think we talked about that Amazon, and did we talk about that? Maybe I forgot about talking about that. Let's assume we have not talked about that. So I'll give you the update again or now. Some days ago, Amazon announced a big deal with Anthropic. Anthropic is a company similar to OpenAI, which is creating large language models. Their large language consumer-facing product is called Claude. It's not called ChatGPT, it's called Claude. Claude AI. You can add Claude to your Slack, and you can ask it questions, and you get responses similar to a ChatGPT bot. Insiders, which I talk about, with which I talk, and sometimes, so people who are much more into AI than I am, say the Anthropic large language model is one of the best out there. So it's as good or even better than ChatGPT, depending on who you ask. And Amazon has announced a $4 billion investment into Anthropic to bring together their large language models with the Amazon ecosphere, Amazon systems. Amazon has also a large language model called Amazon Bedrock. Obviously, Amazon has the best or one of the best capabilities to house huge large language models, because they have all these AWS servers, and you'll need a lot of computing power for large language models. So the partnership announced with Anthropic here does make sense. Also because Amazon is kind of a little bit behind when it comes to how would the public see the big tech companies positioned in the AI race. Obviously, everyone sees Microsoft, which bought OpenAI for, I think they bought it for 10 billion ahead of the game, because that's what most users are currently using, I would assume. They had like over 100 million users. I don't know how many paid subscription they do have actually on OpenAI, and Microsoft is also very much pushing with Copilot and stuff like that. Meta has their own AIs, but let's see what comes out of that. And then obviously Google with their Bard and a couple of other stuff. So it seems like Microsoft and Google are kind of in the leads here. Meta somewhere in between or behind. And Amazon, where's Amazon? Everybody's asking, and there they are, announcing this big partnership with Anthropic. And the actual news I wanted to share with you today was about Mistral. Mistral is an AI company. We talked about that some weeks ago. This was a big deal some weeks ago because it was one of the biggest startup funding without having an actual something. So it is a team of former AI engineers from Meta, OpenAI, wherever they come from. It's a group of, I don't know, 4 people or something like that. And they found a startup in Paris just a few weeks ago, or let's say a few months, let's say maybe 3 months. It's not that far, not that long ago. And these people, 4 weeks after they founded the company, without any product and anything, they received 150 million in funding from some investors, which was a big deal back then because everyone was like, okay, you're getting 150 million funding without having any customer, without having any product. It's just you four saying, hey, we want to build a large language model, give us the money. And people did, because large language models require lots of investments because you need lots of computing power, and that's expensive. Also, AI engineers are very expensive too. So this company is called Mistral AI, and they are located in Paris, which makes it the biggest one of the biggest European AI based companies. There's also Stable Diffusion, which is a big AI thing, at least in the image creation area. It's not a large language model. That's not Stable Diffusion. Stable Diffusion is all about images, and it comes from Stable Diffusion is an original product from the Technical University of Munich. I don't know who's the name of the professor or teacher there who created it, and it's an open source model, so it's not a commercial model. And now back to the story. Mistral AI announced their first large language model, which is quite impressive. I mean, they've just founded like 3 months ago. They got the money, and now they're releasing their first model. And to understand a little bit the context here, models are segmented into the parameters they are using to compute the outputs. So how much input you give the model, the more input you give the model, the better they are usually. So these models are segmented or ranked, or I don't know how to call it, by input parameters. And that's how you also compare the models. So you would not compare a model which just had like 1 million parameters with a model which has 1 billion, right? Because that billion parameter model does has much more data to work with than the 1 million one. You can compare them, but it doesn't make sense because it's like comparing apples to oranges. Even though it's both fruits, they're both different flavors, different sizes, different kinds of fruits. And that's how you do it with large language models as well. And Mistral has released their 7B model, and they're saying the 7B model, 7B stands for 7 billion parameters, which is a rather small amount of parameters, let's say it like that. And they said, and this was announced 2 days ago, Mistral AI team is proud to release Mistral 7B, the most powerful language model for its size to date. So they say it is the most powerful because it outperforms the competitors. So it outperforms Llama 2, which has 13 billion. So it's actually, you know, now we compare kind of apple to oranges, because it's a 30 billion model they compare to, but it outperforms this 30 billion model on all the benchmarks. It also outperforms the 34 billion model on many benchmarks, meaning the 7 billion model is better than the 14 billion model. So they created a model which works much better, much more efficient with the data, or where the output is much better than the model which has double the size, let's say it. And it's even outperforming on some benchmarks the 34 billion model, which is 4 or 5 times the size of it. Yeah, so that's impressive. I'm not too much into details about all of these benchmarks. It's like different, I would say, different things. There's one thing called MMLU, one thing is called knowledge, one thing is called reasoning, one thing is called comprehension, math, code, especially on code and math. This model is very much outperforming all the other models. So the correct comparison model 7B is outperformed by that, the 30 billion and the 40 billion. So it's comparing to the Llama model. I think the Llama is the one from Google, and it's outperforming this by a lot. So meaning, like, for example, I give you a concrete example, so maybe that makes it clearer. On the math test, the math benchmark, the Llama 7 billion model had an accuracy of around 10%. The 30B model had an accuracy of around 20%. And the 34 billion parameter model had an accuracy of 27%. Very hard to read on that chart here. The Mistral 7B model, and remember, the 7B model of Llama was 10%. The Mistral 7B model has an accuracy in math of 34%. So that's 4x of what the 7 billion model from Llama has. So it's a very interesting thing here. Obviously, those models evolve, right? So you'll learn from the mistakes and the errors from other models, obviously, and then you can build a new model which kind of intuitively, or not intuitively, but which can work much better on these things. And it's kind of interesting to see that this model is outperforming lots of these other existing models. I'll link you the article. It's obviously on their website. I'll link it to description if you're interested in that. Obviously, I'll follow them a little bit because it's a European company. I'm very much interested to see what happens in the AI world in the next couple of months. And that's all for Friday. Thank you very much for listening. As always, take care. Have a wonderful weekend and see you on Monday. Bye-bye.